Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Now, before we get started, I first want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in to my recent 3K celebration livestream and Halo 3 drinking game, including our guests for the evening, the lovely Dark Moon Desires, and the sensational Flight of Icarus from Metal Trenches. If you didn't get to join in, don't worry, we'll be doing more live streams in the future. I can confirm right now we'll be doing our long-awaited heavy metal Mii Fighter Super Smash Bros. Tournament. Wow, what a mouthful. Right around St. Patrick's Day next month, and of course, to bide the time until that moment, you can watch all the other live streams in the archives right here on the Metal Meltdown. Booyah! Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about this brand new album from Epica entitled Omega. Omega is the 8th studio album from this Dutch symphonic power and progressive metal fusion band, one that I am, no surprise here, not the most familiar with. On some level, this shouldn't be a huge shocker. I've made it very clear on multiple occasions. I'm not really a big fan of symphonic and power metal. But I will say this about Epica, they are a lot more diverse, a lot more versatile, and a lot more inherently interesting and entertaining than a majority of the symphonic and power metal that is out there right now. Their lead singer, Simone Simmons, in particular, is nothing short of incredible. Hands down, one of the best singers in the entire genre right now. As such, I initially approached Omega with genuine curiosity, which quickly blossomed into genuine excitement and anticipation when I began to look into how the band wrote and recorded this material and what it was actually about. See, this isn't just another Epica album, it's quite possibly their biggest and boldest album yet, acting as the conclusion in a metaphysical concept album trilogy that began with 2014's The Quantum Enigma, and showcasing the band at their most unified point yet, not just as far as the flow of the album and the songwriting, but in a literal sense as well, as the entire band for the first time ever wrote and recorded and produced the album all together in person in a rural village in Holland, resulting in, and I quote directly from a press release, an album of unity, of friendship, of the close bond the members have. And that unity, that friendship, that close bond, believe it or not, drives this record further than any single sonic component on this record and makes it the success that it is. Which isn't to say that Omega is a perfect album, contrary to what some would like to tell you, cough cough Quest for Metal, but I will concede that it is probably their most engaging, their most ambitious, and in turn their best album to date. And keep in mind, boys and girls, this is coming from someone who, quite frankly, on a regular day of the week, does not give a fuck about Epica. That should tell you how good this album is. On top of the band's usual foundation of symphonic and power metal, they're balancing a lot of different sounds and influences from the worlds of progressive metal, from melodic death metal, from Middle Eastern and African music. There are theremins on the record, there are guitar-driven synthesizers on the record, there's a lot of neoclassical influence, there are a lot of surprisingly very heavy, dare I say outright brutal passages and breakdowns on the record. There's a power ballad on here, there's a 13-minute prog metal fucking opus on here, there are guest appearances from members of Myrath and The Agonist. There's a lot of music and information here to process, that much is certain. From a distance, it may seem like a somewhat overwhelming pill to swallow. In theory, it sounds almost too weird and too crazy for its own fucking good, but in execution, Epica kind of balance that weirdness and that insanity with genuine grace. After this very mystical introduction that almost feels like it's been pulled from the world of Elder Scrolls or The Lord of the Rings, Abyss of Time launches you head first into some very bombastic and energetic power metal, contrasted quite nicely by a very subtle yet pungent melodic death metal flavor, which helps the track maintain its intensity and momentum even as it launches into its extremely bright and bombastic chorus, even then paving the way for a surprisingly very heavy and very technical breakdown that almost feels like it could have been pulled from the recent Abiotic record. The track Seal of Solomon indulges further in Epica's apparent love for melodic death metal, now bringing in some Arabian and Middle Eastern musical influences as well, giving this a very mystical, kind of supernatural energy and spirit, one that fits in quite nicely with the very over-the-top and operatic choirs and arrangements. And then you've got Code of Life, which straight up might be one of the best songs Epica have ever written, or at the very least, one of their catchiest. After a very tribal, ritualistic kind of introduction that almost feels pulled from the Black Panther soundtrack, the band launches forth with one of their best fucking riffs ever and one of their best fucking choruses ever. It is infectiously catchy. It practically digs into your skull like a literal earworm. And I'm frankly just downright amazed by Kingdom of Heaven Part 3, perhaps one of the most cinematic cuts that Epica has ever made. It is genuinely unpredictable, chock full of fantastic riffs, fantastic choruses, beautiful guitar solos. Right around the 9-minute and 37-second mark, there's an especially fascinating segment with some very ominous, genuinely spooky theremin and organ pieces. For a moment, it honestly kind of feels like we're traveling through the darkest corners of space and Epica is our guide. Now, not every track is as successful as some of the ones we've mentioned. Rivers, for instance, I thought was just kind of a one-dimensional kind of power metal ballad. The track Skeleton Key as well isn't quite as successful in balancing the weirdness and insanity of Epica's palette as some of the other material we've mentioned. There are a lot of passages that are trying maybe a little bit too hard to have this spooky, gothic flair to it. It feels like something pulled from a Tim Burton movie. There's an oddly heavy, dirgy Slipknot-style riff that's not really doing anything for me. There's a children's choir as well that just feels completely out of place. It's just a generally unappealing, almost confusing kind of track. Probably my least favorite on the entire album. I'm completely lost in regards to the lyrics. I have literally no fucking clue what anyone is talking about at any point on this album. During my first listen of this album, I wasn't entirely sure what to think. I definitely had more of a lukewarm reaction to it, to the point where I felt comfortable almost giving this a 2.5 out of 5. But over the course of the last few days, as I've continued to explore and dissect the record, it has grown on me immensely, to the point where now I'd feel comfortable giving this a very enthusiastic 3.5 out of 5. It is very diverse, it is very creative, it is very imaginative, the performances are great, the production on the record is great. I love how organic and natural all these horns and strings and pianos feel. I love how it sounds so fucking gigantic but never feels overwhelming per se. Some songs are definitely better than others, and I wish that the concept, the story, was a little bit better explained and fleshed out. And on top of that, yeah, let's just be honest with ourselves here. It's really fucking cheesy. Even when it's good, it's just really, 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 really fucking cheesy. But it's good cheesy, you know? Like a fucking pizza pie, and you pick up the slice and the cheese just kind of oozes fucking down in these single glistening strings. To put it very simply, I had fun. It's not a perfect record, but it is probably Epica's best yet, and for the first time in a while, I'm actually pretty interested to see what the band has up their sleeves next. 3.5 out of 5, a damn enthusiastic one at that. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.